The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station in Antarctica was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data flow across their screens, searching for anything unusual among the stars. Tonight was different. Mike Thompson rubbed his tired eyes and leaned closer to his monitor. The strange energy readings had appeared just beyond the Kuiper Belt, far past Pluto's orbit. At first, he thought it was a glitch in the system, but 3 other stations had reported the same anomaly. "Sir, you need to see this," he called out to his supervisor, Robert Clark, who was making his usual midnight rounds with a cup of coffee in hand. The older man walked over, his footsteps echoing in the quiet control room. "What have you got?" "These energy signatures. They're like nothing we've ever recorded before, and they're moving in formation." Clark spilled some coffee on his white shirt as he bent down to look. His eyes widened. "Call the director. Now." Within hours, every major space agency on Earth was analyzing the data. The Chinese Space Agency confirmed the readings from their lunar base. The European Space Union detected the same signals from their Mars outpost. There was no doubt anymore. Something artificial was out there. Director Anna Wells of the United Nations Space Coalition stood before the emergency session in New York, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are not alone. We have detected 15 large objects moving through our solar system. Based on their formation and energy signatures, we believe they are ships." The room erupted in chaos. Representatives from 196 nations all tried to speak at once. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for caution. The argument might have continued for hours if not for what happened next. Every radio telescope on Earth picked it up at the same time. A signal, broadcasting on all frequencies, powerful enough to reach every receiver on the planet. When the computers finished translating the mathematical patterns, the message was simple. Help. Critical system failure. Life support failing. 50,000 souls aboard. Please help. Director Wells raised her hand for silence. The room fell quiet as the message played again. "This," she said, "is humanity's moment. They're not invading. They're asking for help." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Earth's most powerful radio transmitters sent a response. "We hear you. We're coming to help. Please send coordinates." The alien fleet's response included detailed positioning data. They were stranded just past Neptune's orbit, their main drives failing. Each hour brought new information as Earth scientists worked to understand the alien technology from the data they were sending. Military leaders argued for caution, but Director Wells stood firm. "We're launching our rescue mission. If we were stranded in space with 50,000 lives at risk, we would hope others would do the same for us." The UES Horizon, Earth's newest and largest spacecraft, was prepared for launch within 12 hours. Captain Tom Wilson, a veteran of the Mars colonies, was chosen to lead the mission. As he stood on the launch pad in Kazakhstan, he looked up at the massive ship that would carry humanity's first contact team. "Remember," Director Wells told him during the final briefing, "you're not just representing one nation or organization. You're representing Earth. Show them who we really are." The launch window opened at dawn. As the sun rose over the Aegean steppes, the Horizon's engines ignited. Millions watched around the world as the massive ship climbed into the sky, carrying humanity's hopes and the promise of help to strangers from the stars. In the ship's command center, Captain Wilson watched Earth shrink behind them. His crew of 50 represented 20 different nations, chosen for their skills rather than their nationality. They were the best Earth had to offer. "Course plotted to intercept coordinates," his navigator announced. "Estimated arrival in 48 hours. Wilson nodded, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. "Let's show our new friends what humanity can do." All ahead full. The Horizon accelerated, pushing deeper into space than any human vessel had gone before. Behind them, Earth held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when humanity had its first meeting with visitors from the stars. None of them knew it yet, But this was just the beginning. The UES horizon slowed as it approached the alien fleet. Through the main viewport, Captain Wilson and his crew got their first look at the massive ships. They were beautiful in a strange way. Smooth silver curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal, each vessel nearly 3 times the size of the largest Earth spacecraft. Main engines powering down, the ship's engineer reported. "We're within communication range." Wilson straightened his uniform. 2 days of travel had led to this moment. Open a channel to their lid vessel. The main screen flickered to life, and humanity had its first look at their new neighbors. The alien commander stood tall, with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. 2 pairs of eyes blinked at them, set in a face that looked almost cat-like. "I am Ambassador Dell," the alien spoke, their words translated by the computer. "We thank you for coming to our aid." Wilson introduced himself and his crew. "We're here to help. Can you tell us what happened?" The alien commander's story unfolded. Their fleet had been traveling for 3 years, carrying refugees from their home system. A massive solar flare from their sun had forced them to evacuate several colonies. They'd been searching for a new home when their antimatter drives were damaged by an unexpected burst of radiation from a pulsar. "Our backup systems are failing," Dal explained. "We have enough power for basic life support, but it won't last long. Without main power, we can't restart the drives." Dr. Linda Russ, the Horizon's chief scientist, studied the technical data the aliens were sharing. "Their technology is incredible," she whispered to Wilson. "But it's completely different from anything we've developed. We don't even use antimatter drives yet." The aliens had managed to save some of their children and elders by putting them in special sleep chambers that used minimal power. But those chambers wouldn't last forever. "How long do we have?" Wilson asked. 2 weeks at most," Dal replied. "After that, the life support systems will fail completely." Wilson ordered his team to begin immediate inspections of the alien vessels. The Horizon's crew split into small groups, each accompanied by alien engineers who showed them through the massive ships. What they found was both amazing and terrifying. The alien technology was far more advanced than Earth's, but it was dying. Emergency lights flickered in long corridors. Whole sections of the ships were sealed off to conserve oxygen. In the main power rooms, the antimatter containment fields were barely holding. Lead engineer Kate Miller walked slowly around one of the alien power cores. She'd never seen anything like it. The technology was elegant but completely foreign. "It's like comparing a quantum computer to an abacus," she told Wilson during their emergency meeting. "We're centuries behind them in some ways." But Miller had noticed something else. Their power distribution system, the way they move energy around their ships. "It's not so different from ours. We might not be able to fix their drives, but maybe we can give them enough power to keep their people alive until we figure something out." Wilson called another meeting with Ambassador Dell. The alien leader listened carefully as Miller explained her ideas. "You believe you can help us," Dell said, "even though our technology is so different." "Sometimes," Miller replied, "being different is an advantage. We've had to solve our power problems in our own way. Maybe that's exactly what you need right now." The next few hours were crucial. Miller and her team worked with the alien engineers, comparing Earth's fusion technology with their systems. They discovered that while they couldn't repair the antimatter drives, they might be able to adapt human fusion reactors to power the alien life support systems. "It won't be pretty," Miller told Wilson, "but it could work. We'll need help, though. Lots of it." Wilson contacted Earth with their findings. They would need more ships, more fusion reactors, and more engineers. They had 2 weeks to save 50,000 lives. Director Wells' response was immediate. "You'll have everything you need. Earth stands ready to help." As Wilson ended the transmission, he looked out at the alien fleet. Their silver hulls reflected the distant sunlight, making them glow like beacons in the darkness. The real work was about to begin. Back on Earth, every major manufacturing facility had switched to emergency operations. Fusion reactors, normally built over months, were being assembled in days. Engineers worked in shifts around the clock, their factories lit up against the night sky like small cities. Kate Miller hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stood in the alien ship's main engineering bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing power calculations. Next to her, the alien engineer named Rix moved his four-fingered hands through the data, adjusting numbers faster than she could follow. "The power conversion ratios are wrong," Rix said, his translator making his worried tone clear. "Your fusion energy is too unstable for our systems." Miller rubbed her tired eyes. The first test had failed spectacularly, burning out the connection points between the human and alien technology. They'd lost 6 precious hours replacing the damaged components. "Show me the power flow again," she said. The hologram changed, displaying the energy movement through the alien systems. That's when she noticed something strange. "Wait, your power doesn't flow like ours does. It pulses." Rix's second set of eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of excitement they'd learned to recognize. "Yes, our systems expect energy to come in waves, like a heartbeat. Your fusion reactors produce constant power." Back on the horizon, Captain Wilson was coordinating with the incoming Earth ships. 20 vessels were approaching, each carrying fusion reactors and engineering teams. They formed the largest space fleet humanity had ever assembled. "Latest report from Earth," his communications officer announced. 3 more ships launching in 6 hours. Global production of fusion cores is at maximum capacity. Wilson nodded. They had 10 days left before the alien life support systems failed completely. The race against time was getting tighter. In the engineering bay, Miller had an idea. "What if we don't try to match your power system?" she asked Rix. "What if we build something new instead?" She pulled up the design software Earth's engineers had modified to work with alien technology. "Look, we can create a buffer system, like a dam holding back water. It would take our constant fusion power and release it in pulses that your systems can use." Rick studied the design. It could work, but we would need to build 15 of these systems, 1 for each ship, and they would have to be perfect. One failure could cascade through the entire fleet. Miller sent the designs to Earth. Within hours, engineers worldwide were reviewing them, suggesting improvements, finding potential problems. It was the largest collaborative engineering project in human history. The first prototype was built in the Horizon's cargo bay. Engineers from both species worked side by side, human tools mixing with alien technology. When they powered it up for the first test, everyone held their breath. The buffer system hummed to life. Fusion energy flowed in, and out came the precise pulses the alien systems needed. The test readings were perfect. "It works," Miller shouted, forgetting protocol in her excitement. Even the normally reserved Rix let out a trill of joy that made the humans' translator unit squeal. But they couldn't celebrate long. Building and installing 14 more systems would push their deadline to the limit. Wilson called an emergency meeting with Ambassador Dow. "We can save your ships," Wilson explained, "but we'll need to evacuate some of them temporarily while we install the new systems. Would you allow us to house some of your people on our vessels?" Dow looked at his own data pad, checking the failing life support readings. "We have never shared our ships with another species," he said slowly, "but you have shown us nothing but help and friendship. We trust you." The evacuation began immediately. Earth ships drew alongside the alien vessels, extending docking corridors. For the first time, large groups of aliens would live alongside humans. As Miller watched the first group of alien families board the Horizon, she felt the weight of their trust. They had to succeed. Failure wasn't an option. "Ready to start on the second buffer system?" Rix asked beside her. Miller nodded, already pulling up the construction plans. "Let's show the universe what humans and aliens can build together." The installation of the second buffer system was going well until it wasn't. Miller watched in horror as the power readings suddenly spiked, sending cascades of sparks through the connection ports. "Shut it down," she yelled. Emergency shutdown now. Rix's fingers flew across the alien control panel, but it was too late. The surge had already damaged critical components of both human and alien technology. Smoke filled the engineering bay as emergency teams rushed in with fire suppression equipment. What happened? Captain Wilson demanded, arriving minutes later. Miller stood amid the wreckage, her face streaked with soot. The power harmonics were different on this ship. The same settings that worked perfectly on the first one almost caused a meltdown here. 8 days remained before total life support failure. The setback cost them precious time and materials. Worse, the failed installation had damaged part of the alien ship's power grid, forcing them to evacuate 3 more decks of refugee families. In the Horizon's main conference room, Wilson met with Ambassador Dell and the other ship captains. The holographic displays showed the status of all 15 ships. More red warning indicators were appearing every hour. Each of our ships is slightly different, Dal explained, his usual calm voice showing signs of stress. They were built in different shipyards over many years. The power systems have small variations we never needed to account for before. Miller and Rix worked through the night, analyzing the data from the failure. Other engineering teams reported similar problems. What worked on one ship might be dangerous on another. They needed a new approach, and fast. On the Horizon's observation deck, Miller watched Earth ships arriving with more supplies and evacuation crews. The sight of human vessels moving confidently among the massive alien ships still seemed unreal. "I think I understand the problem," Rick said, joining her at the window. "We built the buffer system to be perfect, but we need it to be adaptable instead." Miller turned to him. "What do you mean?" "Your Earth has many different types of power grids, yes, but you can still plug in your devices anywhere." "How?" "Power adapters," Miller said slowly, then faster as the idea took hold. "Power adapters. We don't need 15 perfect systems. We need one basic system and 15 different adapters." They rushed back to the engineering bay, calling in teams from both species. The new design was simpler but more flexible. Instead of trying to match each ship's exact power signature, they would create a universal buffer system with customizable adaptation modules. The next 24 hours were intense. While some teams rebuilt the basic buffer system, others took detailed readings from each alien ship, designing specific adapters for each one. Every available 3D printer on the human ships worked at maximum capacity, creating the specialized components they needed. Wilson coordinated the growing fleet of Earth ships, now numbering over 30. Some evacuated alien families, others delivered supplies, and still others served as floating workshops. The space around the alien fleet had become as busy as any orbital shipyard back home. The first test of the new system came 52 hours later. Miller and Rick stood at their separate control stations, watching the power readings climb. "Buffer system stable," Miller reported. "Adaptation module functioning within parameters," Rix added. "Power flow is perfect." They said it almost simultaneously, their voices mixing with the cheers of the engineering team. But they couldn't celebrate long. They still had 13 more ships to equip, and only 5 days left. The modified design was faster to install, but they would still be working until the last possible moment. Ambassador Dell visited the successful installation personally. He watched the human and alien engineers working together, their earlier awkwardness replaced by smooth coordination. "In all our travels," he told Wilson, "we never imagined our rescue would come from a species younger than our own. Yet here you are, doing what we thought impossible." Wilson watched as Miller and Rix led their team toward the next ship, already discussing modifications for its adapter module. "Sometimes the best solutions come from seeing things with fresh eyes," he replied. "Shall we check on the evacuation progress?" As they walked through the corridors, emergency lights still flickering overhead, both leaders knew that the real test was still to come. They had found a solution, but the clock was still ticking. The massive construction effort around the alien fleet looked like a dance from a distance. Earth ships moved in careful patterns between the larger alien vessels, delivering supplies and transferring crews. Among them, smaller repair shuttles darted back and forth, carrying engineering teams and equipment. Miller hadn't seen her bed on the horizon for 3 days. She and Rix had been moving from ship to ship, supervising each buffer system installation. They were making progress, but not fast enough. 7 ships complete, she reported to Captain Wilson during the morning briefing. 8 to go, and 3 days left before total life support failure. Wilson studied the holographic display showing the fleet's status. More than half of the alien refugees had been temporarily evacuated to Earth vessels. The space around Earth's moon had become an emergency shelter zone, with orbital stations housing thousands of alien families. The good news, Miller continued, is that we're getting faster with each installation. The adaptation modules are working perfectly. That's when the alarm sounded. Emergency in Ship 11, the communications officer shouted. Complete power failure in their life support grid. The ship in question was one they hadn't reached yet with the buffer system. Its power had been failing gradually, but something had just pushed it over the edge. How many people are still aboard? Wilson demanded. 400, Ambassador Dal replied, his voice tight. Including a section of sleep chambers we couldn't safely move. Miller and Rix exchanged looks. We can't install the buffer system in time, Miller said. The power grid has to be stable for the installation to work. Then we try something new, Rix replied. He pulled up the ship's schematics on the main screen. Look, if we can't save the whole ship at once, we can save sections of it. Miller finished his thought. Captain, we need every portable fusion generator you can get us, right now. Wilson understood immediately. All ships, this is Captain Wilson. Divert all portable power generators to Ship 11. Emergency Protocol 7. The next few hours were controlled chaos. Miller and Rix led teams into the failing ship, setting up small fusion generators at critical points. They couldn't power the whole vessel, but they could keep essential systems running in key areas. Sleep chamber sections stabilize, an engineer reported. Life support holding in sections 3 through 7, added another. They worked deck by deck, section by section. It wasn't elegant, but it was working. The ship's power levels stopped dropping. It's like putting a patient on life support, Miller explained to Wilson later. We're keeping it alive until we can install the permanent solution. The emergency had taught them something valuable. Instead of waiting until they could install complete buffer systems, they could stabilize the remaining ship section by section. It would take more resources, but it would let them work on multiple ships at once. Wilson presented the new plan to the fleet commanders. We'll need every portable generator Earth can send us, but we can do this. We can stabilize all remaining ships within 24 hours. Ambassador Dell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. You continue to surprise us. When one solution fails, you simply find another. The next day was intense. Earth ships arrived carrying hundreds of portable generators. Engineering teams spread out across the remaining ships, setting up temporary power systems everywhere they could. Miller and Rix moved between ships, coordinating the efforts. They had worked together so long now that they barely needed translators anymore. Each could guess what the other would need before they asked. By the end of the day, all ships were stabilized. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it bought them the time they needed to install the proper buffer systems. In the Horizon's observation lounge, Miller watched the fleet's status displays change from red to yellow to green, one by one. Beside her, Rix made a sound she had learned was their equivalent of a satisfied sigh. Your people never give up, do they? He asked. Miller smiled, remembering all the times in human history when things had seemed impossible until someone found a way. That's kind of our thing, she replied. We're too stubborn to accept failure. Outside the window, the Earth ships continued their careful dance among the alien vessels. They had won themselves time, and now they could finish the job properly. Wilson's voice came over the ship's comm system. All teams, great work. Now let's make it permanent. With all ships now stabilized, a new challenge emerged. The alien fleet had become a small city in space, with humans and aliens working side by side on every vessel. What had started as an emergency rescue was turning into something more. In the main dining hall of Ship 7, Miller watched as human engineers sat with alien technicians, sharing meals and stories. They had set up translation devices at every table, and the room buzzed with conversations in multiple languages. "I never thought I'd see this," Rick said, joining her with his own meal. A strange blue cube that smelled like mint. On our world, different species rarely work together so closely. The temporary power systems were holding well, giving them time to properly install the permanent buffer systems. But the work was going faster than anyone expected, thanks to the growing understanding between the two species. Captain Wilson stood on the Horizon's bridge, watching the latest status reports. 10 ships now had permanent power systems installed. The remaining 5 were scheduled for completion within 2 days. Earth ships continued to arrive, but now they brought more than just supplies. They carried scientists, doctors, and cultural experts eager to learn from their new alien friends. Message from the UN Space Coalition, his communications officer reported. They're asking about establishing permanent diplomatic relations with the Alien Federation. Ambassador Dal had similar news when they met for their daily briefing. "My people are impressed," he said, "not just with the technical rescue, but with how your people have treated ours. Some of our families don't want to leave Earth's orbit." The ambassador shared videos from the lunar stations, where alien children were learning about Earth culture from human teachers. In return, alien experts were teaching humans about their advanced technology, not their military secrets, but enough to help Earth make huge leaps in medical science and clean energy. In one of Ship 12's engineering bays, a young human engineer named Jack was learning to read alien technical manuals. His teacher, an alien engineer named Pell, was equally curious about human tablet computers. "Your devices are so simple," Pell said, "but they work so well. We overcomplicate things sometimes." Miller walked past them, heading to check on the latest buffer system installation. She smiled at how normal it all seemed now. Just 2 weeks ago, humanity had never met aliens. Now they were teaching each other how to use their tools. The cultural exchange went both ways. Human doctors learned about alien biology, while alien doctors studied human medical techniques. Engineers from both species found they could solve problems better by combining their different approaches. In a cleared cargo bay, a group of aliens watched in fascination as humans demonstrated various sports from Earth. Soccer became an instant hit, though the aliens' superior jumping ability made the game more three-dimensional than usual. Wilson received a special request from Ambassador Dal late one evening. "My people would like to hold a celebration," Dal explained. "A thank you for all your help. Would your crews be interested?" The celebration was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Alien music filled the ships, a strange but beautiful mixture of sounds. They shared traditional foods from both cultures, though carefully checked for compatibility first. Children from both species played together, while adults exchanged stories and ideas. Miller found Ricks at the celebration, both of them watching the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. "We did it," she said. "Not just the rescue, but something bigger." Ricks nodded, a human gesture he had picked up. "We proved that different species can work together, live together. My people will remember this." On the main view screen, they could see Earth in the distance, a blue marble floating in space. Around it, ships from both species moved in harmony, their lights twinkling like new stars. "Captain," Miller turned to Wilson, who had joined them. "What happens now?" Wilson looked at the celebration around them, then back at Earth. "Now," he said, "we show the galaxy what humanity and our new friends can achieve together." The party continued late into the night, but many were already thinking about tomorrow. There were more buffer systems to install, more cultural exchanges to have, and more bridges to build between two species who had been strangers just weeks ago. In space, the lights of the combined fleet shone brightly, a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose to work together. 1 month after the first distress signal, the alien fleet floated in perfect formation near Earth's moon. All 15 ships now had working power systems, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. What had started as an emergency rescue had become the greatest technological and cultural exchange in human history. Miller stood in the Horizon's observation deck, watching the last Earth supply ship return home. Next to her, Rix was making final adjustments to the power readings on his tablet. "All buffer systems are running at optimal efficiency," he reported. "The integration is better than we hoped. Your fusion technology and our power grid work perfectly together now." Captain Wilson entered the deck, followed by Ambassador Dell. Both leaders looked tired but satisfied. They had spent the last week in meetings, finalizing agreements between their peoples. "The last refugee families are returning to their ships today," Wilson said, "though some have asked to stay on Earth." Dell's 4 eyes blinked in agreement, "And several of your scientists have requested to travel with our fleet. It seems our peoples are not ready to say goodbye completely." The past month had changed both species. Humans had learned that they weren't alone in the universe, and more importantly, that they could hold their own among the stars. The aliens had discovered that younger civilizations could sometimes teach older ones new ways of thinking. In the main hangar bay, the farewell ceremony was beginning. Hundreds of humans and aliens gathered together one last time. The UN Space Coalition had approved an historic agreement. Earth would establish a permanent embassy with the Alien Federation, and regular trading ships would travel between their worlds. Who would have thought, Miller said to Wilson, watching the ceremony, that a broken power system would lead to all this? Wilson smiled. Sometimes the worst situations bring out the best in people, or aliens. Ambassador Dahl took the stage, his voice carrying through translation devices across the bay. "1 month ago, we thought we were doomed. We had lost power, lost hope, and were drifting in an unknown system. Then we met humanity." He gestured to the gathered crowd. "You didn't just fix our ships. You opened your homes to us. You worked day and night to save people you'd never met. You showed us that the age of a civilization doesn't determine its worth. Its actions do." The ambassador raised a device in his hand. It was a small cube, glowing with a soft blue light. "This is our gift to Earth. The plans for our faster-than-light communication system. With this, our peoples will never lose touch, no matter how far apart we travel." Director Wells, who had flown up from Earth for the ceremony, accepted the gift. In return, she presented Dell with Earth's own gift, the complete designs for the buffer system that had saved their fleet. "This represents the best of both our peoples working together," she said. "A problem neither of us could solve alone, but together we found a way." As the ceremony ended, crew members said their goodbyes. Many had formed strong friendships over the past month. Promises were made to stay in touch, to visit, to continue learning from each other. Rix approached Miller with a small package. "A personal thank you," he said, handing it to her. Inside was an alien engineering tool, like the one she had admired during their work together. Miller gave him a Earth tablet in return, loaded with human music and books. "So you won't forget us," she said with a smile. The alien fleet prepared for departure. One by one, their engines powered up, now running smoothly thanks to the buffer systems. The Earth ships formed an honor guard, lining up to bid them farewell. On the Horizon's bridge, Wilson watched as Ambassador Dowd's ship moved into position. "Safe travels, my friends," he said over the comm. "Until we meet again," Dahl replied. "Remember, you are not alone among the stars anymore. You have proved you belong out here with us." The alien ships moved gracefully away from Earth, their silver hulls catching the sunlight one last time. Behind them, they left not just working technology, but new friendships, shared knowledge, and the beginning of a new chapter in human history. As the fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, Miller stood at her window one last time. Earth glowed blue and beautiful below, but now she saw it differently. It wasn't just home anymore. It was humanity's first step into a larger universe. Ready for our next adventure? Wilson asked his crew. The answer was written on every face. Humanity had faced its first major test among the stars, and they had passed with flying colors. Whatever came next, they would face it together.